Are electric vehicles really better for the environment? It's a question that's been debated for years, but when you look at the data from around the world, the answer is a confident yes. Electric vehicles aren't just cleaner at the tailpipe, they're reshaping how nations think about energy, sustainability, and the future of transportation. Today, we're going global, exploring how EVs are transforming the environment in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, China, and Australia. We'll break down the facts, the numbers, and what this shift means for the planet. Electric vehicles are no longer a niche technology. In 2024 alone, over 14 million EVs were sold globally, a record that shows people everywhere are choosing electric over gas. But the environmental story goes deeper. EVs reduce emissions not just from the tailpipe, but across their entire life cycle, from manufacturing to charging to recycling. Yes, battery production uses energy and resources, but when compared over years of driving, EVs emit far fewer greenhouse gases than internal combustion engine cars. It's a transformation that's cleaning the air, creating jobs, and reducing oil dependency all at once. Let's start with Canada, where clean power and strong policies are driving a green revolution. By 2035, all new vehicles sold in Canada will be zero-emission, either fully electric or hydrogen-powered. This transition is expected to eliminate more than 430 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions between 2026 and 2050, representing an estimated $19 billion in prevented environmental damage. Canada's Minister of Health, Jean-Yves Duclos, summed it up perfectly. Zero-emission vehicles are not only good for our environment, they have a direct positive impact on our health. And that's not just talk. Provinces like British Columbia and Quebec already generate 95% or more of their power from clean sources like hydro and wind. Even in Alberta, traditionally reliant on fossil fuels, 1/3 of electricity now comes from renewables, and that share is rising every year. EV battery recycling projects in Ontario and Quebec are helping recover lithium, cobalt, and nickel, closing the loop for a sustainable EV ecosystem. Next up, the United States, where innovation and policy are working hand in hand. Transportation is still the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the country, but EVs are changing that. According to the EPA, electric vehicles produce 60 to 70% fewer lifetime emissions than gas cars, even when charged from a mixed power grid. Over 40% of U.S. electricity now comes from low-carbon sources like wind, solar, hydro, and nuclear, and that number is growing fast thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. Cleaner power means cleaner charging. Meanwhile, battery recycling companies such as Redwood Materials and Li-Cycle are recovering up to 95% of valuable metals, dramatically cutting waste. The health benefits are just as impressive. The American Lung Association reports that nationwide EV adoption could prevent 110,000 premature deaths and generate over $1.2 trillion in health and climate savings by 2050. Cities like Los Angeles and New York are already seeing measurable air quality improvements as EVs replace gas fleets and buses. Across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom has taken one of the boldest stances in the world, pledging to end all new petrol and diesel car sales by 2035. Today, EVs in the UK emit 3 times fewer CO2 emissions over their lifetime compared to petrol cars. And with more than 60% of Britain's electricity now coming from renewables or nuclear, the carbon footprint of each electric mile keeps shrinking. Air quality has already improved dramatically in London. Nitrogen dioxide levels have dropped by as much as 25% since electric buses and taxis were introduced. The UK is also investing heavily in battery innovation hubs and gigafactories, fueling local production and creating over $24 billion in new economic growth by 2030. Clean energy, cleaner air, and a booming green economy that's a win on all fronts. Now let's head east to China, the world's largest EV market and a country that's redefining what large-scale sustainability looks like. China accounts for over 60% of global EV sales and produces the majority of the world's batteries. In 2023 alone, EVs in China prevented over 100 million tons of CO2 emissions. That's more than the entire annual emissions of some European nations. Renewables now supply 36% of China's electricity, and that's projected to surpass 45% by 2030. Cities like Beijing, Shenzhen, and Shanghai have seen 40% reductions in fine particle pollution, PM2.5, since switching public transport to electric. Battery giants KATL and BYD have also built massive recycling facilities that recover up to 90% of lithium and nickel, keeping toxic materials out of landfills. And it's not just about the environment. China's EV industry now supports over 5 million jobs, showing that sustainability and economic growth can thrive together. Down under, Australia is catching up fast. Long dependent on coal, the country is now turning the corner toward renewable energy and electric transport. According to the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, if just half of Australia's vehicles went electric, national carbon emissions would fall by 30 million tons per year. By 2025, renewables will generate over 50% of Australia's electricity, meaning cleaner charging and lower emissions. Cities like Melbourne and Sydney are already reporting better air quality. And new health studies show reductions in asthma and respiratory illness as EV adoption increases. Australia is also one of the world's top producers of lithium, the key ingredient for EV batteries, and is now investing in domestic refining and recycling plants to reduce export-related emissions. The country's national EV strategy is funding charging networks along more than 50,000 kilometers of major highways, making it easier than ever to drive electric across the continent. When you look across all 5 countries, Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, China, and Australia, a global pattern emerges. Electric vehicles are working. Together, these nations are projected to eliminate over 1.5 billion tons of CO2 by 2050 through EV adoption. They're cleaning the air, cutting noise pollution, creating green jobs, and giving people energy independence. Battery recycling is reducing waste and mining pressure. Renewable power is making every EV mile cleaner. And innovation is accelerating at lightning speed. Every country is different, but the message is universal. Electric vehicles aren't the future, they're the now. Sure, there are still challenges. Battery production needs more ethical sourcing. Charging infrastructure has to keep expanding. But the progress we've made in just a decade is astounding. Electric vehicles are cutting emissions, improving air quality, and driving an energy revolution that stretches from Toronto to Sydney, London to Beijing. The cleaner our grids become, the more powerful this transformation gets. Every charge, every recycled battery, and every electric mile brings us closer to a sustainable world. Electric vehicles aren't just cars, they're a global movement. A movement for cleaner air, smarter energy, and a healthier planet. If you believe in that future, hit like, subscribe to the Plug-in Report, and join the conversation. Tell us in the comments, which country do you think is leading the EV revolution, and why? Together, we're driving toward a cleaner tomorrow, one charge at a time.